guys, welcome back. These are my impressions for the Sony press conference for E3 2016. Sorry it took a little longer than expected. Real life beckoned and stuff happened, but I'm here now, and hopefully you enjoy this. So Sony's conference this year was like just game, 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 game. The exact opposite of something like Ubisoft, where game, LeVar Burton comes out, another game, Frank Marshall, producer for Assassin's Creed, comes out. It was just here are our games, trailers back to back to back to back, and I feel like they knocked it out of the park with most of them. So it opened with this big orchestra, which went on just a little bit too long. I would say that that's the only part in the conference that kind of dragged, but it sounded a lot like God of War. And then something came on screen that showed a little kid, banging the toys together, walks in, and then Daddy Kratos with his giant beard steps out, and that's when the first cheer erupted, basically. And I feel like the conference was on a high from that point on. As far as the new God of War, I like it a lot. It looked like it was actually, strangely enough, influenced by something like The Last of Us. It's much less over-the-top, giant action, Kratos killing people and sleeping with ladies, and much more of a relationship dynamic between him and his son. From everything I've read, I believe this is the same Kratos from the other games. It's not like a reboot or redo of the franchise. It's Kratos at the end of the other games now has a son and is starting to kind of let go of his rage, as they showed in the last games, which is good because he just became an over-the-top caricature towards the end of those games, just killing for no reason, always angry, no character development, and honestly got kind of boring. Gameplay was great, story and world got kind of boring, but this game shows him and his son. He's very visually and apparently holding back his anger from his son, trying to teach him how to hunt, getting frustrated, bringing it back down. I'm really interested in this new relationship dynamic. It looked like something between Joel and Ellie in Last of Us. As far as the combat, it looked alright. I wouldn't know until I got my hands on it. It looked much more like a third-person, over-the-shoulder action game like Dark Souls, rather than something like God of War, way pullback and giant vignettes, things like that. The troll fight, I believe it was a troll they said, still looked cool. But I really don't know what to think about the combat until I actually play it. There are still some RPG mechanics, like in the last games you could upgrade your weapons, and this one it showed like archery knowledge gained, or I don't think there was a parenthood knowledge gained, but that's basically what happened. The game looks really cool. I'm excited for it. It looks great. I like the Kratos beard. It's now in a Nordic setting, like Vikings instead of Greek, so I don't know how they're going to do that with a character, how he lifts out of one mythology and goes to another, but I'm very interested to see how they do that. And then they finally showed Sony Ben's new game that no one had seen. They'd been working on it for 4 or 5 years, something like that, ever since Uncharted Golden Abyss, the port on Vita. Not the port, the game ground up from the Vita, but it's called Days Gone. I honestly, this is going to be the third Last of Us mention already, but I love The Last of Us. It reminded me of Last of Us, and I actually thought it might be Last of Us 2, and that they outsourced it to Bend instead of Naughty Dog because, Naughty Dog made Uncharted and then let Bend make Uncharted on the Vita. I was thinking the same thing was going to happen with The Last of Us. Naughty Dog makes Last of Us on PS4 and then outsources Last of Us 2 to Sony Bend. But it's a new IP called Days Gone, previously rumored as Dead Don't Ride. But it kind of looked like a mix between Sons of Anarchy and like a post-apocalyptic zombie game. Actually, the way the zombies chased after the guys, I actually read online from a developer, looked most like a fluid simulation. So imagine how you simulate water. That's what the zombies looked like pouring over each other, trying to claw at the protagonist. So pretty creepy. I'm not the biggest fan of zombie games. I feel like it's a little overused, but just the force and the number of enemies that were coming at you looked pretty intimidating. So if they have the same great kind of character development that Uncharted and Last of Us do, but with that kind of over the top, skin of your teeth action, that could be really cool. I'm not too excited about it yet, but Sony Bend, after Siphon Filter, Uncharted Golden Abyss, has a pretty good track record, so should turn out well, I would think. Then we got a Last Guardian release date, finally. I think this is 10 years, something like that, after it was announced. They're finally going to release it in October. I think it's 25th. Sometime toward the end of October 2016, finally this year, unless they push it back, which would just be comical at this point, and no one would take them seriously, so it's got to be coming out in October after being delayed this many times. After that, they showed a Horizon Zero Dawn gameplay segment. I don't think it was a vertical slice made specifically for the game. From the interviews I saw, they just opened up the game world and they played like one mission, and so it showed Aloy, the main character, talking to a dude, getting a quest, realizing there's a problem, going across this bridge into this village. This thing attacks. She takes control of this robot dog, and then starts riding it around this other monster that she fights. But it showed the different kind of enemy scanning mechanics, and that she could tell it was weak to fire. She started using fire. She set traps. She took control of that dog, like I said, and dodged the enemy around there. It showed all the gameplay systems actually finally coalescing instead of just showing this part or just showing this part. And that was probably the most excited I've been for Horizon, because it actually showed how the game would play. Looks great. Still coming out early next year, I believe February. Just if not February, just early next year. I might be getting that mixed up with Persona. Coming out early next year. It just got pushed. It was supposed to come out this fall, but got pushed to next year. But I'm super pumped about Horizon. Hopefully it turns out as great as it looks. Beautiful game. After this, they showed David Cage from Quantic Dream, his new game called Detroit Beyond Human, which is kind of a iRobot vibe. If it was much more realistic androids. In this world, I almost said basically, but I stopped myself. In this world that they've created in Detroit, androids are almost indistinguishable from humans in terms of their how they look. And what's being discussed in the game is, are they indistinguishable in how they should be treated and how they feel things? Are robots that are this advanced just as human as humans? And so I imagine a lot of the game is going to be the fight between humans and robots, not the physical fight, but in terms of the culture and society, how these robots are treated, how these androids are treated, how they treat the humans, and vice versa. So a little bit of a Deus Ex thing going on, but the gameplay section that was shown was just one situation where this hostage negotiator, who was an android, was trying to talk another android off the ledge of a roof, and he was holding this little girl as hostage. And so it showed all the things that could lead up to that situation, all the things you can do to save the girl, have the girl die, save the android and the girl, kill the android, kill yourself and the android. It just showed all the different things you can do to ameliorate that situation for better or for worse, or to actually make things go really badly. Everyone could die. But it looks a lot like Heavy Rain, the game from a few years ago before Beyond Two Souls. Looks like it's going to switch between a bunch of different characters, because they already showed Kara before. So lots of different characters, lots of different choices for different situations, very much a narrative-based game like Quantic Dream's other games. And if you want to check out something that looks a little bit like Quantic Dream but is more of a horror bent, check out Until Dawn. It's kind of the same thing, that all your choices matter and will tell the game which character lives or dies, and so you can always get something different. So high replayability. I don't know how big it's going to be scope-wise, but that's another game I'm really excited about. Right after this, they went into their VR section, and the first game they showed, they talked about the Kitchen demo that came out a few years ago that I never got to play, but a lot of games media played, and fans at different conventions, where you're basically tied down to a chair. This crazy lady comes in, stabs you in the leg, and does all sorts of mischief. It just plays in VR with sounds up and around you, and it's just, it was apparently very, very creepy, very unsettling. And so the trailer that they showed said before Kitchen, and then showed this really creepy looking just kind of horror demo, kind of reminiscent of something like PT came out last year. And then maybe 2 years ago, whenever PT came out. And then at the end, it pulled out and it said Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, which everyone was, because no one was expecting Resident Evil to take that form. It's very clearly a reboot, which was rumored, but this is so much of a reboot, no one could even tell it was the same game. But it looks really creepy, looks like something I would never ever want to play in VR. But they said it is fully playable in VR and outside of VR, just as a full game. So if you want to play Resident Evil with just a screen, you can do that as well. They then announced that PlayStation VR will be coming out in October, this fall. And then they went into a montage of more games, including one called Farpoint. Well, I actually thought it was a little Mass Effect-y at first, but space game, you're in a suit traveling this distant planet. But Farpoint, and then the Star Wars X-Wing VR mission, that could be awesome. Piloting an X-Wing in VR. And then they went to Batman VR, which everything I've heard out of the conference is that it's actually really cool. Batman Arkham. It plays into his detective side, and you have to figure out some murder mystery as Batman. But that's about all I know of it. But everyone I've heard says it's awesome, so I'm excited about that as well. And then they showed Final Fantasy 15 in VR, which did not look good, and from what I've heard, was not good, which is fine. I wasn't planning on playing 15 in VR anyway. That game does not lend itself to VR. Right after this, they showed Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, which actually looked a lot better than I was expecting. I thought it was another VR game at first, because they never differentiated the VR section from this new section. It just went straight into the new trailer. But it showed this guy flying through space, going in and out of rubble. Actually looked like a realistic Star Fox. Shot out of the ship, had a grappling hook, and started like in 0G shooting from space to space, which I really like. Call of Duty controls very well, but I haven't been a big fan of it in years. There was nothing new about it for me. Didn't really enjoy it. This kind of traversal looks really interesting. Like it could make a really fun game. So playing in 0G and shooting fools, I could be down for that. Although it is interesting that Titanfall comes out with wall running, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, or Advanced Warfare, comes out with wall running, Titanfall 2 comes out with grappling hooks, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare comes out with grappling hooks. So I don't know if there's any connection there, but there's definitely a correlation. Conspiracy. And then they played the Crash Bandicoot music, and I started freaking out and scared my girlfriend. Sean Layden walked out onto stage and said the first three Crash games, 1, Cortex Strikes Back, and Warped, are all being remastered from the ground up for PS4, which I'm super excited about because I love Crash. Those would be great nostalgia games. Even if they weren't good games when they came back out, I think I would still enjoy playing them, so really pumped about that. And then they talked about Skylanders and Crash, which I have nothing to say about. At this point, Sony dropped another bomb and brought out Hideo Kojima, who just said, "I'm back!" And everyone freaked out. The game that he showed, again partnering with Norman Reedus, another bomb. Not Guillermo del Toro, unfortunately, but Norman Reedus in the game from Walking Dead, Daryl. Game looks very, very weird. It was him waking up on a beach completely naked, holding like a baby, and so, Norman fetus jokes abound on Twitter. But he just stands up, and then 5 things are coming at him. A lot of people are thinking it's a concept trailer, not even for the game, but for what happened with Kojima, and that they tried to kill his baby, and then it was taken from him, like in the story, and then he turned around on the beach, and the 5 phantoms are coming at him, which would be the 5 Metal Gear games, which actually makes sense if you think about it that way. And Kojima has always been a very, auteur kind of video game maker, very personal stories, and all this weird stuff that's in his head no one else understands. So if that really is just a narrative to what happened with him at Konami, I could be down for that. That's interesting. And Kojima, when he's being weird, is the most interesting Kojima. So I'm super excited about Death Stranding, this new game. And then, Spider-Man, made by Insomniac, from Ratchet & Clank and Sunset Overdrive, who are some of the best people at traversal in games. Sunset Overdrive is so much fun to play. I am super excited about this. The only ones I could be more excited about making a Spider-Man game would be Sucker Punch, who made Infamous, because they do superhero combat so well, but I will gladly take Insomniac. I'm not a huge fan of the suit that they used. The suit looked kind of goofy, but as soon as the voiceover came on in New York and said, "I'm just a kid from Queens," I started jumping up and down and giggling and scared everyone around me. I am so excited about this game. I hope it harkens back to the Spider-Man 2 days on PS2, because that game was so much fun, and we haven't really had a good Spider-Man game since then. So I'm very pumped about Spider-Man from Insomniac, and hopefully it doesn't let me down. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is going to be my longest talk by far, but Sony was one of the only conferences that every single thing they put out interested me, other than maybe like Lego Star Wars or something like that. But just a great conference. Microsoft did a really good job marketing with their Xbox One S and then the Project Scorpio coming out. But Sony's direction was clearly just, here's a game. The only hardware they talked about was really quick, talking about the actual release date for PSVR. I mean, just going down the list of what happened real quickly. New God of War, new Sony Bend game, Days Gone, Last Guardian release date, Horizon demo, Detroit demo, new Resident Evil, Farpoint, Star Wars in VR, Batman in VR, Infinite Warfare, which actually looked good to me for the first time in a while, Crash Bandicoot, Lego Star Wars, Kojima comes out and introduces his new game that no one thought he would have anything on yet, and then Spider-Man. That's such a great conference, because it's yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. It's a great conference. I really enjoyed it. And And thank you guys for watching this. This went on much longer than I intended, but I got really excited. At the end of this will be a link to all my other impressions on those conferences. Please watch them. Let me know what you think. Call me stupid, that kind of thing. I'm used to it. I thank you guys for sticking around with me, and I will see you this Saturday and then again on Tuesday. Love you guys. Bye.